I feel like intros are overrated.
I know. You've already started dismissing them pretty much.
I feel like we've started now.
I feel like we've had to start now.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome to my channel.
Yes, and to mine.
And to your channel. So, of course, Deebrief, Pies Nation, Nick, Adrian. I've stolen the show already.
All right. Well, you're already here, so...
That's fine.
That's
Mate,
okay.
It's a big week.
Huge week.
Big week, of course. We've got the Fight M&D game, the Big Freeze.
Yep.
Which is one of the great occasions in footy.
And how good that both clubs represented on the slide as well with Dakes and Davey.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I mean, two legends of both clubs in different ways. Flash for us. I think early on, like the way he burst onto the scene, he was quite a phenomenal player, changed the game with his forward half pressure. I felt sorry for him in the back half of his career because he had to play with a lot of dross. We went through some pretty dark years and he was a bit of a shining light for us, but then Dakes, far out.
Don't know what more can be said, really. I think he was, unfortunately, ended his career probably not on his terms. He felt like he could have gone around a little bit more, but for the 14, 15 odd years he was around, I mean, he was touted at the time as probably one of our most talented, greatest players, and it's funny that one of his sons might take that mantle from him in half a decade or so. But no, an unbelievable player, freakish talent, and obviously didn't grow up watching him as such, but the stories and the vision I've seen over time, enormous. Yeah,
it's a bit like Robbie Flower for Melbourne. The older generation constantly educating me on what Robbie was like. Seen many highlights of him, YouTube packages, but my old man and the generation above me and the generation above them just waxing lyrical about Robbie Flower and what he did for the club. So pretty similar in that respect.
Absolutely. There's always a few around there. But, yeah, always a great opportunity, regardless of who's going up in the slide. It's fantastic to see so many get involved and a big crowd expected at the G, which is very exciting for everybody. So if you're thinking still about going down, I couldn't encourage you more to head down and watch it all unfold, and hopefully we get a good game in between too.
We'll see. It will be a big game. There'll be a lot of Collingwood supporters out in force, of course.
As always.
I think the record crowds, off the top of my head, 83.
83, I was saying during the week, yeah.
Yeah, so they're trying to get 85,000 down there. Now, the footy gods, well, not the footy gods, the weather gods, are not helping us because apparently it's going to be pissing down with rain.
Yep.
But no excuse. Get to the footy, get to the G. There'll be a lot of Collingwood fans there. There would have been more Melbourne fans there had they not slipped up last week and kicked the 7-21 against St Kilda.
You think that's enough to waver the confidence of a lot of your fans?
A little bit. I mean, I think we're a little bit soft in that regard. Just in general. I stick up for Melbourne crowds. There's a bit of a myth going around that they don't rock up. If you actually look at our average home crowd attendances in the last 4 or 5 years, they've been pretty good. We're never going to get anywhere near the likes of a Collingwood, a Carlton, even throw a Richmond and a Essendon in there. Like, fair play to Essendon fans. We don't want to talk about Essendon for too long on this show.
No thanks.
But despite the fact they haven't won a final since 2004, their fans still rock up. But there is a bit of a myth, I think, around Melbourne crowds. They're not as bad as people think and the perception that's been pushed. But this is a big day for us. Melbourne have to treat it like their grand final because their season's on the line. Yeah,
well, I mean, you wouldn't have thought that was the case even 5 or 6 weeks ago. And I've had to consume a lot more Melbourne content than I usually would, being the producer of your show. So it's been an interesting ride, to say, from where you were sitting at 0-4, 0-5, was it? 0-5, and then to turn around the way that you have with some pretty crucial wins during that stretch. I mean, some really strong performances, I have to say. And I know last week would have been a bit of a blip in the road, but I always fear coming up against Melbourne on this day because we know how much you as a club pump it up and really want to make it special, and of course the connotations with Neil and the like. So we know that every club always tries to play their best against Collingwood, and we're expecting nothing less come Monday. But in saying that, I don't think we've really put a foot wrong ourselves over the last month or so, and it's hard not to be confident without being arrogant. even though I think we if you listen to our show on Monday, then geez, you would think we've already delivered. And some of the fans that have sent their voice memos in, and it's just a pretty wild ride. But no, we know as Collingwood fans that nothing's won until the siren goes, and I'm just keen for a really good contest because I think we're going to get one.
I think Collingwood fans know better than anyone else. You can get to the big dance because you've been there so many times, but the 16 flags and the 27 grand final losses probably always in the back of your minds.
Yep, and you've accounted for a few of those, so thanks for that.
Yep, very back in the day, a long time ago. But that's the thing that I think keeps Collingwood supporters somewhat humble.
Yep,
is just the sheer reality that you've been there many times before and found ways to lose grand finals. But I said it on my podcast, and I think a few of the boys almost screw up their face a little bit, a bit of a smirk, like, why is he saying that? I genuinely do respect Collingwood because Collingwood are almost always there. There's no under-the-table fuddy-duddies that Geelong do.
Carlton.
And Carlton back in the day.
Yeah.
And even Hawthorn, they had a secret bank account in
100%.
Tasmania in the 80s, which I think contributed to a few premierships. So I think Collingwood do it the right way. And the one thing that I'm definitely jealous of is the amount of supporters that you've got, the crowds that you get. Even interstate teams coming over to play at the MCG, you're getting crowds in the 60s, high 60s, early 70s. Like, that's exceptional. So I do have respect for Collingwood. I think this year it's really funny. It kind of feels like Sydney of last year so far. You're taking the competition by storm. You're playing exceptional footy. Some of the stuff you played against Hawthorn was outrageous. Like the precision kicking going inside 50 was wild. Houston hitting up targets. What a recruit he's been. Even Steele side bottom, there was this beautiful worm burner that he hit this dart that went no higher than 15 metres and found a target inside 50. He's playing some of his best footy. I just think it's like, are you peaking a little bit too early? We won't know because no one's got the crystal ball. It feels a little bit like Sydney of last year. I think the difference between you and Sydney is Sydney were all class and poise and polish, whereas I think you've got a bit of mongrel bastard, and that's what you need in finals.
We can turn it that way if we need to, which has been a positive. I think what's put me in good stead about how we're playing so far is that we've won in different ways. It hasn't been the same all the time, and some teams have found us out early in matches, and we've been able to switch things on the fly and move some positional plays around, which has allowed us to be in better positions to win games. And I think that's what's made me pretty confident that we can be up to the task against just about anybody. I think it's so funny that after round zero, our mature age players were such a problem and that they were going to hold us back in 2025, and then they're arguably been our best players already this season. And you mentioned Steele. I mean,
amazing. It's
been a pleasant surprise to see just how well we have been playing. I don't think anybody, no Collingwood fan, could have expected us to be in the position we are at the moment, especially because the competition is still so tight. There's still so many teams that you can pencil in as ones that are going to be there on the final day in September. So it's pleasing, don't get me wrong. Being 10-2 on top of the ladder is fantastic. My one big concern is health. Yeah. And I know that comes without saying, but if we can maintain a pretty strong list and not have too many long-term injuries, that can be a big factor into derailing a season very quickly. And because we do have a slightly older list compared to others, it does make us a little bit more vulnerable in that sense. Right now we're in a luxurious position where we can manage players. Jordan De Goey, he's been playing injured. We've been able to have the chance to rest him for a little while now. We're easing Tom Mitchell back into senior footy. We haven't had to rush him in per se because we've had others stand up to play his role. So it's great that we're, as I said, in that position, but can't take it lightly. And one loss can turn to two, and we know that it can very quickly ask some questions of you when you start to not perform. Look at Hawthorn as a prime example. They were flying after a month or so, and now the questions have been asked of them, and they've got a big couple of weeks ahead. So, it's fantastic to see that we're playing so well. But, I'm really trying not to push it too far. It's been pretty good. I can't complain.
Jamie Elliott, he's been unbelievable. Watching him last week on Friday, I was just sitting on the couch and I was going, who the fudge is going to curtail him from a Melbourne point of view? I think it probably ends up being a job for Judd McVie. It's a big task.
Yeah.
He's playing scintillating footy. And then the other one that scares me, I think if you quell Jamie Elliott, I worry about Bobby Hill.
Yep.
And the Bobby Hill matchup, I really hope we don't roll with this, but Caleb Windsor got taught a lesson last week in terms of two-way running defensively. Dan Butler getting out the back, kicking 4 goals, almost being the difference in the game from a forward perspective. If we run Caleb Windsor with Bobby Hill, I think we're just asking for danger. So it's funny that aerially with your big, tall key forwards, I think we might be okay in that respect. But it's these medium and smaller forwards that do so much damage for Collingwood, and Jamie Elliott and Bobby Hill far out. Like, if it's wet, I think their skill set will certainly come to the fore. So that's a big, big concern for me, those two players in particular, and I think Melbourne need to be really smart about who they roll with. And I'd even consider throwing Trent Rivers back behind the ball.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Just because I'm that scared of those two players.
Well, I think with Jamie Elliott, he's the complete forward. Yes, he's small in stature, but he's been compared to as some of the strong full forwards over the last half a decade or so, because he's just so excellent with his IQ with the footy. Makes plenty of space inside forward 50, leads up brilliantly, can mark overhead, chest, right in front. And then even if he doesn't mark it, his ground ball has been exceptional. And we've always seen that from Jamie. And I think we feared a lot as Collingwood fans. He had a lot of injury struggles early in his career, and we didn't know if we were going to get the best of Jamie Elliott. And I think everyone would have been content if he had retired after winning the premiership, because he was able to, redeem himself, come through and be part of that journey. But the fact that he's still going at this age and then playing career best footy, where he's looking at a potential 50-goal All-Australian season, I mean, it's just unbelievable, and a privilege to have someone of his ilk in our forward line playing the way he is. And, not putting the pressure necessarily on a Lachie Schultz or a Bobby Hill to bob up and kick 2 or 3 goals a match for us, because, Jamie's delivering on that aspect. So it's fun. The wet weather concerns me with that. I think Bobby might be a little bit more suited to it, and I'm not sure where Jamie goes with that, but I do have full faith that he can put on another pretty special performance. If I had to look at it on the other way, I mean, you've got a pretty dangerous forward of your own at the other end of the ground in Cozzy Pickett.
Yep.
And I think I would have laughed at you if you had have said to put Isaac Quainer on him at the start of the year, but his work over the last fortnight's been pretty exceptional. Did a pretty good job on Nick Watson last Friday against the Hawks, so would like to see Quainer at least start on Cozzy, but I mean, he's just so silky smooth, and even when he moves into the midfield, he just becomes an extra threat. And it's no wonder you're doing everything you can to keep him around at the club, because him and Maxi, which I'm sure we'll touch on as well, have been two of the reasons why you've been able to climb your way back up the ladder.
Yeah, definitely. I think Cozzy still annoyingly lacks a bit of consistency. We've seen some big games from him. We've seen some 20 and 5s, and then the week after we've seen him almost fall off a bit of a cliff in terms of output, and that was certainly the case against St Kilda. Windhager did a really good job on him in a tagging role, and he didn't have an influence last week whatsoever. He was in at centre bounce quite a bit. I think he attended 70% of the centre bounces last week. So I think the conundrum for Melbourne, I guess it's a healthy one because he's been so dynamic from clearance and stoppage, is what split we actually end up doing. I would rather see him spend more time forward this week.
Okay.
I think if it's wet, a player like Cozzy, you said it with Bobby Hill, I feel like it's tailor-made for him.
Yeah.
So we've got enough options to roll through the middle. It's a shame we're going to miss Jack Viney, because I think if he were to go into the midfield rotation.
What's the story with
just
that?
His hand. He had the...
It's not the concussion anymore?
Well, no, he had the concussion and then apparently slipped over at training before the Alice Springs game and fractured his hand. So he's out this week, a potential chance for Port next week, but I think they'll probably just wait until after the bye.
Yeah.
and then he'll come back into the team. So if he came in, it would have been really nice where we could have maybe put Cozzy forward a bit more. It would have just made that decision a bit easier for match committee. But I just want him forward more. I would do a 70-30 split forward and mid this week with Cozzy. I think we need to get him in the forward half as much as possible if it's going to be wet. And the reality is, if Melbourne are good at one thing, and it's certainly not kicking goals, we're really good in the territory game.
Yeah.
So we've still got that in our DNA. Even last week, we had the high 50s in terms of inside 50s. St Kilda only had 40. We played a very aggressive press. We were happy to play that way. It was unfortunate we couldn't finish off our good work.
Yep.
And St Kilda in transition ended up kicking, I think it was 10 goals from their defensive half. So we're going to get time in our forward half, and that's why I would rather have a guy like Cozzy in and around what will probably end up being a lot of repeat stoppages.
Yep.
If it's wet. I think we almost in a weird way waste him a little bit if we're putting him into the midfield. I would love to see him stay predominantly as a forward, because I think he could ultimately be the game breaker and the match winner for us. And we're going to need some big performances, because Collingwood's form is unbelievable. Like, I've sat back and marvelled at what they've done in recent weeks. The rain probably suits us.
Yeah, it does. 100%.
Because of your precision kicking, you're similar to the Bulldogs in that respect. So hopefully those skills go out the window a little bit, and Melbourne can maybe make it a bit more of a grind. And I think we have to. I think the only way we win this is repeat forward 50 stoppages, manufacture different ways to get goals through sheer grit. But I've got no faith and confidence in our ability to kick it through the big sticks.
Are you a high clearance team?
Yeah, we have been. Like the last 6 weeks before the St Kilda game, we're one of the best contest teams in the comp. So I still think that part of our game will work really well on King's birthday.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's your answer.
Yeah.
We've won the clearance count twice this season, and it's been See, it's funny because I wouldn't say it's a poor aspect of our game. Yes, we're conceding a lot of ground, and as you said, with the rain coming on Monday, it probably means we're going to have to sharpen up a little bit in that area, because if we give you repeat chances on goal and you convert them, as opposed to what you did against St Kilda, that's going to be a little bit of an issue for us. What we pride ourselves on is winning the ball in our defensive 50,
yes,
and then having that slingshot game where we can transition from defence to attack, and that's where a lot of our goals come from. We scored 71 points from defensive intercepts against the Hawks.
It's amazing.
On Friday night, which are unheard numbers, but I found it wasn't even top 5 under fly,
really?
that figure. Wow. So we definitely pride ourselves on using that as our source of scoring, which is fantastic, but the weather means that might be something of our game that gets taken away, especially if you are clinical early. It puts us on the back foot a little bit. So whilst, as I said before, I like that we can adjust a little bit and turn things as the game's going on, I do worry that if you get a hold of us in the clearance count, then that's going to put us in a little bit of danger. We've got a good midfield mix that I feel like can combat that a little, but my problem is Max Gawn and the way that he's been playing his footy this year. As good as Darcy Cameron has been, and I still think if he continues down this race, and he might be a sneaky squad of 40 All-Australian look, because he's been playing some great footy. Max is the one that we need to stop, and if we don't, then I don't know if we're going to get the 4 points.
Yeah, it's funny how many teams just decide to kick long down the line, and there's Big Maxi.
Yep.
Just plucking it out of the air with absolute ease. Makes the game look stupidly easy when teams decide to do that.
Yeah.
It could be a day where you've just got to get it forward. The ground ball game will be really interesting. I think Collingwood are just so rapid, so clinical, not as fumbly as Melbourne. Like, I'm quite critical of how much we fumble in terms of the ground ball game. I think you guys are really slick in that aspect. So if you keep it on the deck and keep it out of the air, away from Max, who'll probably end up playing a kick behind the play,
yep,
I think you're a good chance of maybe mitigating his influence on the contest.
Yep.
But just while you're on it, I think Darcy Cameron's an exceptional ruckman, and somewhat of a player that I reckon only 3 or 4 years ago I didn't think he was much chop. I feel like he's come on in leaps and bounds recently, and absolutely put himself in the conversation as one of the top 5 rucks in the comp. You have to say Cherry and Gawn, the two standouts, and then absolutely I think Cameron has to be in the mix as maybe the 3rd, 4th best ruckman in the comp.
Well, Rise has been fantastic because he lost his starting ruck spot in the back end of 23 and he worked incredibly hard to finish 2nd in our best and fairest last year, which was a phenomenal achievement in itself. But then to go another level again, I just love that he's got so many aspects to his game. The fact that, he can go back and play behind the footy, probably not as well as Maxi does, but still be that relieving player. And he was very important for us against Fremantle in that role. He can impact the scoreboard at the other end and go up and take some important marks. I think I'm not sure exactly because I haven't looked at it in a couple of weeks, but he's definitely the one of the highest rucks in terms of contested marks this year. So you talk about going down the line. Well, he's certainly capable of at least making a contest. But knowing how accountable DC is going to have to be on Monday, this is where I wouldn't mind bringing Mason back this week.
Big Meso.
Didn't play a second ruck against the Hawks, and when we had to put Billy Frampton in there, I think we got found out a little bit in the first half. It was the only time I felt uncomfortable about the Hawks getting back into the game. Mace loves King's birthday. He's played some pretty good games against you guys over the years, so I would love to see him have the chance to come back in. That's only if, I don't know if you saw, but Dan McStay might be a chance of returning for us this week. And if he is, well, then he's been able to play that backup ruck role pretty well, so I wouldn't mind him coming into the mix as well. But still not sure what that will look like. But I think we do need a second ruck of some sorts just to ensure that we're not giving DC the full load against Maxi.
Lockie Schultz, that's a big out.
Yeah, can't catch a break.
Is that a big out?
It is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is he the number one pressure player in your side?
Absolutely.
Or is it McCreary?
No, I think Schultz has taken the mantle this year, and I think it was a big part of his game last season, and it got swept under the carpet quite a bit because a lot of Collingwood fans were expecting to see him kick 30, 40 goals after his time at Fremantle. It didn't quite work out that way, and there was a bit of criticism. But no, his pressure and his second efforts around the footy have been sensational, and he's had a couple of big plays this year that have stopped us from being in vulnerable positions against opposition sides late in matches. I look at the Bulldogs and Freo games as prime examples, and it's been fantastic to see him play such a role after I guess a down year last year. You could see what he was trying to do, but I think he just needed some time to fit into a new structure and a new side. Unfortunately for him, he just can't catch a break. He's had concussion, now this hamstring injury, another hamstring injury he had earlier in the season as well. So unfortunately for him, he just hasn't been able to get a good run at it. He's certainly our best 22, and he'd be going straight back into this side, and it's going to be a big blow having him and Paddy Lipinski out of this team this week. Of course, Lip with that concussion as well that he suffered last week. But, love what Shooter's brought to the table, and I just couldn't be more impressed with how he's been able to keep his head up throughout this whole time. And I think there were instances in games last year where if he didn't get that confidence early, it would result in him having a pretty minor impact throughout the rest of a match. We're seeing now that even if he has those moments early in games, he's able to pick himself up and still know that he can play a role in this side with his pressure and his tackling, which he's been superb at. But, he's going to be a big loss.
Pendles?
Yes.
Is he just playing until he breaks the record? Is that it? The game's record?
Well...
Does he play next year?
I can't see why not.
So
I can't see why not.
That means he breaks it if he doesn't get injured.
He is. I think he'll break Michael Tuck's record if we have a deep finals run.
426 Tuck off the...
426 was Tuck.
Harvey was 430.
432 was...
432. So Harvey. He's on 413 as we speak.
So he's got 20 games to go.
So he plays this year. He stays relatively fit. You might manage him for a couple more. Who knows?
Yep.
And then he goes again next year and he breaks the record. Is that what he's doing? He's just playing until he breaks the record?
Well...
He's playing good footy.
I think, and that's the other thing, I think if he wasn't and there was queries about if he's still in this best 22, then we're looking at, maybe this might be your last year. But, I heard reports as early as March that he was already keen to play into 2026. And I think what he's bringing to this side, apart from the fact that he can still get the footy, again, is his IQ and his on-field coaching that he brings to the side. And just encouraging the Nick Dacoses of the world and the youngsters in our team on how things are going on field in real time. And I think that's such an underrated part of what our squad is made up of. The likes of, Steele, Jeremy Howe has been incredible this year.
We don't talk about him.
Yeah, I know you don't like Jezza, but I have to because, he's had an underrated season and his experience comes into the fore. But there are others. Brody Mychek is even in his 30s and he's been one that's led that forward line pretty well. So I can't complain with what the older guys have brought in, and Pendles has led that charge exceptionally. And as long as he's still getting the footy, mate, I can't see how he's not in this side for a bit. So
it's incredible.
I really got to enjoy it.
He's 99% Collingwood. He's 1% Demon. It's really funny how I claim this, which is so stupid. But I love it when Pendles talks about being a childhood Demon. He's like, my favourite player was Adam Uze. I love the 3/4 sleeves. And I'm just like, isn't it beautiful that one of the greatest players to ever play the game, who might potentially get a statue out the front of the MCG, and if he breaks the game's record, he probably deserves one.
He's probably the best ever pie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And he's got this tiny, minuscule semblance of red and blue in him from when he was growing up. But, yeah, I mean, he's Collingwood through and through, and he obviously loves the club, and he's so loved. And the other thing as well, as an opposition fan, is I think it's a true testament to a bloke like him where I just can't hate him. How could you hate him? Like, he's a fair player. He's an exceptional footballer. He's a great leader. He seems like a really good fella. He always conducts himself well in the media. So I have nothing but admiration for Pendles, and it's probably similar with, I would say, Steel Side Bottom as well. Yeah. Like, they're the two, you look at them and you go, well, they're both there, they're both guns, and they've played a lot of footy, and they're still soldiering on. And yeah, so the Pendles thing, I've got that little claim of like, he's 1%.
That's fine. If that makes you sleep at night, mate, I'm more than happy.
I think about it all the time, Nick.
I need to ask you.
Yep.
We've won 10 of our last 12 against the D's.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Now, there's a point to this, I promise you. Hawks have been our bogey side for a long while, and there was so much nerves for us coming into that game, knowing that it was one we had to win.
Yep.
And to win by the way, the margin that we did has put us in pretty good spirits. What makes you think Monday will be different compared to times that you've had to play us in recent years? What gives you that bit of optimism that you are able to come to the G on such a big occasion against a red hot side like us and come home with the 4 points?
You don't have to win. I don't think you have to win.
No.
You're that far clear. I think your run home looks really nice. I think the way you're managing the squad, you referenced to Goey before, the luxury of not having to rush him back, so you're not chasing and banking 4 points every single week, or you don't have to. So eerily to me, it feels a bit 2023, which is the last time we beat you, and that was on King's birthday.
Yes.
Melbourne were coming into that clash desperate to cling on to their top 4 position and remain one of the premiership contenders at the time. You came in there, I think, 11-1.
Yeah.
And I think you guys were a little bit off it. There were some key personnel missing as well. And I just felt like you were that 5-10% off it. We were ravenous. We were desperate. We needed the victory. I feel like there's going to be a slight bit of that in it.
Yep.
I think the conditions might suit Melbourne. Like, you are an incredibly skillful team, and other people's theories are that, well, the most skillful side in the wet will actually do a number on the team that isn't as skilled. And we know that Melbourne aren't as skillful, but the one thing that Melbourne have is they're so fierce at the contest.
Yeah.
So I think if we can manufacture a score somehow from our territory dominance, that'll help. And then the other thing as well that I think has been lost in the wash-up from last week against St Kilda is we've actually been playing some good footy.
You have.
And even last week we generated 30 scoring opportunities. And if not for our inaccuracy, we're probably sitting here talking about, I know it's should have, could have, would have, but we're talking about a team that's won 6 of their past 7 leading into King's birthday, and the other loss that we had against Hawthorn, we kicked 7-14.
Yeah.
And again, there's a conceivable world where if Melbourne finish off their good work, we could have won 7 in a row. And again, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But to my point on that, we've won 5 of our past 7 the last week's loss was like a massive kick in the guts, just in terms of the progress that we've made.
Yep.
But it shouldn't hinder what I think will be a resurgent Melbourne on Monday, because if I was the coach, I'd still be telling them, you're doing a lot of things right, fellas. It's just we've fallen down with that final point of execution, which funnily enough is the most important part of the game.
Yep.
And you guys are phenomenal at it. But I think there's still a really rock solid body of work to suggest that Melbourne hopefully can encapsulate all the things that have made them a competitive outfit, more than a competitive outfit in the last 7 weeks, and we can see more of the good stuff, and we can put all the inaccurate bullshit in the bin on Monday. But I think the most important thing is how Melbourne start. If Melbourne come out the gates, they're breathing fire, they're all over Collingwood, but we kick 1-5 to begin the clash. You go down the other end, you kick 3 goals 1 or 4 goals 1, and that's the score at quarter time. I think it'll be so deflating for Melbourne. I think Melbourne, especially early on in the game, we have to be clinical. We have to take our chances, and we have to get the ledger of goals versus behinds in our favour, because for me, a lot of this is mental.
Yeah.
So that's why there's some optimism from me.
I sympathise with inaccurate goal kicking because Collingwood are pretty prone to doing it as well. Only this year has it, for some reason, been nothing short of a miracle that we've actually been kicking pretty straight this year, which has been superb. But, I understand. And you're right. I think if you are clinical, especially in the wet, and as I said before, especially if you're getting on top of us in the middle, that's where we will find ourselves under the most pressure. And I'll be curious to see how we do respond to that. Our pressure's been very good as well around the contest. Our tackles counts have been absurd over the last fortnight. So I do back us in that if it does become a scrap, that we're able to get out the better of it. But in saying that, it could be a very different game come Monday.
What are you expecting? Let's wrap it. What are you expecting?
I'm expecting us to win by 40-odd points, if I'm honest. But the reality is it's not going to be. I was really hoping this would be a dry contest. It's not going to be.
So if it was dry, are you pretty confident you win by 40?
Well, I won't be that arrogant.
No, it's not.
I won't be that arrogant.
That's not arrogant. Do you think about what you did last week to Hawthorn?
Yeah.
You did an absolute number.
5 odd goals.
Yeah, I mean...
I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
That's fair.
I just back our system, our defensive system, the way that we can quell the influence of an opposition's forward line when they start to get irritated and frustrated that things aren't coming off, and the fact that we can transition so much of our footy from defence to attack and be really clinical in that aspect. It just puts me in good stead. And there's nothing that I've seen in the last 2 months that suggests that I won't see something similar on Monday. It's our last game. It's what, a 10-day break for us from the Hawks game. We come into the bye after your clash. As we said, a bit of a more favourable fixture run to come home. It'll put us in a really handy position at 11-2. And I just think that the mindset of this Collingwood side is a little bit different to what you were suggesting in 2023, where we were a little bit off and we're a bit unsure about what we needed to do to maintain the standards in that position, because at the time, it was the first time in a while we'd been on top of the ladder in such riveting form, probably since the back end of 22. We're probably a little bit vulnerable just in the aspect of not having that experience around us, and that led us to maybe having a bit of a more disappointing second half to the home and away season in 23. I think we're a more mature side, and Fly said that. It was one of the most mature performances he's had in his time when we defeated the Hawks. That just puts me in a lot of good faith that we can go ahead and win this. Just quickly as well, so yes. Aiden Johnson suspended.
Yeah, he is.
Am I seeing Big Van Ruin make his way onto the G, or do we have another replacement for him?
A lot of people are thinking maybe Tom McDonald comes back into the team. He plays behind the ball. Daniel Turner plays as a forward.
Yes.
I prefer that as my number one option. I think Jacob Van Rooyen and Matt Jefferson still need to do more time at Casey.
Okay.
They're kicking goals. Jeffo in particular is kicking bags. For Casey, I would rather see those two continue to probe and push at reserve level. I would go with the T-Mac back in. He's had a bit of a rest. Apparently he hasn't been going hard at reserve level. He's been conserving himself.
Because you were pretty shocked when he got dropped in the first place.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And the other thing is I rate Disco Turner really highly, and Collingwood supporters would know this, but he's finally got continuity. He's been in and out of the team a lot of injuries, a lot of mishaps. It's been a faltering start to his career over the last 3 years, and we did pick him up as a mid-season rookie, but he has found himself at the level.
Yep.
He looks so comfortable. He's having a big influence on proceedings. I think he's a serious footballer, and I think if we play him in the forward line, I think along with Cozzy, he could be the difference. I rate him so highly, and I think we've found one not only for the future, but for the here and now. Like, his intercept game has been brilliant, but Tom McDonald can do the same thing. And if it's going to be wet, I think we need a target long down the line. Petty's been okay, I guess, but we need someone who can actually kick goals. And Daniel Turner's the type of guy that I could actually see him kicking 3 or 4 on King's birthday.
Nice.
So that's what I think we'll go with in the end.
Very good. I want a margin and a Neil Danaher trophy winner from you, please.
I think Melbourne get it done. I think Melbourne get it done in gritty circumstances. I think we kick more behinds than goals still.
Okay.
But I think it's just an absolute slugfest where the score ends up being, for simplicity's sake, 70-60.
All right.
Melbourne win by 10 points to honour Angus Brayshaw.
It only took us 30-odd minutes to bring him up. I'm glad there's someone not playing for us.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I know. Yeah. If there was an elephant in the room, that's for sure.
That's okay.
We won't talk about it.
That's for later. That's for later in the year.
It is. Blood pressure levels have gone through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Cozzy ends up being the difference in this one. He tends to bounce back after having a down week.
Yep.
And I think, as we said before, the conditions will suit him. Yes, he'll spend a bit of time in the midfield, but I'm talking a 25, 3 goals, a shitload of tackles, the clear difference on the day. So it seems like a really, very obvious choice.
Yep.
The other player we haven't mentioned as well is, I think, Christian Petrarca coming back onto the big stage of King's birthday last year, going down with that horrific injury.
Yep.
A childhood pie as well.
I know. We have a nice spot for him if he still wants to consider anyway.
So we need to mention that, but I think he'll have a big day as well, and hopefully rid himself of a few demons from last year and cherish in a victory, because that was a pretty harrowing experience for us, and pretty embarrassing experience for Melbourne as a footy club as well, because all the medicos and everyone involved didn't handle that very well. So embarrassing, and I'm hoping that a year later we get a beautiful outcome instead of what we saw last year, which was horrific and, as I said, quite embarrassing.
Well, it started a bit of a 2-month spiral for you guys after that. Again, not to open old wounds, but it wasn't ideal. I didn't like seeing it off as a Collingwood fan, of course. It was a pretty horrific time. And
how he was allowed back on is beyond me. It was crazy.
You could just tell from the stands.
You could just watch it.
He was like, what's he doing?
It was.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Oh, it was terrible. We were the same in the stands. We were standing there at one point. We're like, get him off. Get him off now. You could just tell the way he was grimacing.
Yeah.
Touching his rib cage. It was absolutely horrible. So I'm hoping that he has a big game and he can sing the song at the end of it.
5 goals. I'll stick with it.
5 goals? Sure.
We've already seen this year that the Pies can win by a decent margin in the wet, albeit it was against Essendon on Anzac Day, so I don't know how much you take to that. Jamie Elliott, he can just kick goals in any conditions, any way how. Any way the ball's delivered to him, he can pick it up one hand off the ground. He can
another
take
5?
Gee, if he kicks another 5, well, he should be leading the Coleman if it wasn't for Jeremy Cameron's junk time goals against West Coast. But regardless, he kicks another 4 or 5, well then we're having a serious discussion about him being one of the best forwards in the competition. I think he was rated as the best player just about in the comp in the last 5 or 6 weeks, according to Champion Data. So, would back Jamie to have another big performance. Ned Long's my underrated Neil Danaher Trophy medalist. He's had a phenomenal year since being a staple hold in this side. So, he'll love the wet. Big tackling man. can get it done. Very hard to tackle,
Mm-hmm.
so that might be a bit of a task. But can't wait.
It's going to be good. If you haven't got your beanies, buy your beanies, of course. You can get them on the day. I went to Coles before and they had to rip a few out from underneath the counter because they were sold out with the ones that were out in the open.
Yeah, you can get digital beanies now. I don't know if you saw. Yes.
Digital beanies as well. So link in bio for all Debrief viewers and listeners. Just jump on there on the Instagram page and you can donate and buy a beanie. But yeah, hit up fightmnd.org.au off the top of my head and donate to one of the great causes in footy. I just absolutely love Neil to bits. He's in
just on that. How good? Obviously, he goes to the clubs each year in the lead up to the game, but to have his voice, the technology that they use to allow that to happen. I mean, technology can be used in pretty poor ways at times, but to see it utilised in that fashion, I just love that for Neil, and I'm just so glad that we're able to still see him in the flesh delivering those empowering and inspiring speeches each and every year.
Just can't believe he's still here. Yeah. And it's remarkable that they've gone through this journey. We're at Big Freeze 11 and he had the opportunity to clone his voice and now he can interact with people. So a remarkably resilient man, a remarkable man, an extraordinary man. I run out of superlatives. He is an inspiration. It's a great day. The way that Collingwood conduct themselves, the respect between the two clubs, it's absolutely awesome. I love the way that Collingwood have lent into it. We share this beautiful occasion, but I'm sick and tired of losing to Collingwood. It's time to stop the rot. And I don't give a shit that you're top of the ladder. As I said before, I think you guys are in a prime position regardless. And this is almost our grand final, and it's about time we stood up for ourselves, stopped getting bullied on this day, and we did something about it. And I really want the 4 points this week because there are too many times I've walked out of the MCG after Collingwood losses. And, I just feel like I've been bullied in the schoolyard or something of that nature. And
you'll hear it next week from me, mate. Don't worry.
I know. I'm so sick of it. So please, Melbourne, pull your fingers out of your ass and win this occasion for once because the record is terrible. 15 Collingwood wins, 7 Melbourne wins and 1 draw. That's got to change. I don't care how good you're going. That has to change this weekend.
Bring it on. We're ready for you.
It's going to be good. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, 80.